This is Bill Newman, WHMP.
And this is Rich Michelson.
NPR, Northampton Poetry Radio, and we are starting this day with a amazing announcement, and our guest, Martina Espada, who is almost my co-host on these shows these days because I think you've been on more than anyone else. Martine, for those who don't know, but I think you all do by now, is, to my mind, the premier poet working in this country today. And you don't need to believe me. You can look at a list of awards: the Ruth Lilly Poetry Award, the Shelley Memorial Award, the Robert Creeley Award, Academy American Poets Fellowship, a Penn Refson Fellowship, a Guggenheim Fellowship, on and on and on. And we already originally set up this interview this morning to announce that Martine tomorrow is one of the finalists for the National Book Award, which will be released tomorrow. But as if he hasn't won all the awards, we have in just now, this morning, a scoop.
Aha.
And that almost takes precedence over the National Book Award in my mind. And that is the Andrew Mellon Foundation and the Flamboyant Arts Fund announced this morning a brand new award, the Letras Boricuas Fellowship, awarded to Puerto Rican writers living in the U.S. and Puerto Rico. And among the very first group of recipients is our own Martina Espada. Congratulations, Martine.
Thank you, Rich. Good to be back.
This is, to my mind, I'm thinking that this is almost more meaningful to you than a National Book Award, which will be nice in any case, because it's your hometown, folks. It's your heritage. You're being honored by the people who you often speak for.
Oh, absolutely. There's an emotional resonance to an award like this, like none other. And it's not only unique in terms of the awards available to writers out there, it's unique in my experience. I've never received an award like this, an award from an island-based foundation. And it should be noted here that the Flamboyant Foundation, and now I'm reading from the release that they sent out, is doing great work on the island. And for the past 2 years, the Flamboyant Foundation has worked through its Flamboyant Arts Fund initiative to preserve, amplify, and strengthen the arts in Puerto Rico. In response to the devastating effects of Hurricanes Maria and Irma, the fund has committed over $10 million and provided critical support to more than 600 artists and arts organizations, including museums, theaters, arts education programs, and concert venues, to maintain the integrity of their programming, increase their visibility, and sustain their impact. Moreover, last year, the two foundations, Flamboyant and Mellon, worked together to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic, providing $1 million in emergency relief to 89 arts organizations and 600 individual artists. The Emergency Relief Fund was established to help alleviate the devastating impacts of the pandemic on the arts and culture sector in Puerto Rico by providing grants of $5,000 to $20,000 to support staff salaries, rent, and other basic needs during the emergency, as well as the creation and expansion of virtual arts programming. So it's an extraordinary initiative, an extraordinary collaboration between these two foundations, and especially at a time like this when there has been such great crisis in Puerto Rico, which began with the hurricanes in 2017, which continued with the earthquakes, and then COVID-19, not to mention the continuing economic domination of the island by the same forces that have always dominated the island in the last 120 years or so of United States colonialism. So this is historically and politically quite notable.
This is, I mean, and we're talking about 4 years ago when I think last month that the hurricane passed through. This shows what you can do when you help as opposed to throwing a couple of rolls of paper towels into the crowd.
Yes.
You know, this is work on the ground. It's getting the arts recognized. It's doing something for the people. And basically, the winners here are who's who of Puerto Rican in every field. You know, it's just an amazing group to be part of. And what I'd like to do, Martin, just we're starting off this section. I think it's a nice segue into a poem, and maybe you can read "Letter from My Father." I think that's pertinent both for the hurricane, both for the day, and it talks about your heritage and why you are the first recipient, among the first recipients of this award.
Absolutely. That poem makes sense to read. Now, this does bring us back to the fall of 2017 and Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. My father, Francisco Luis Espada, Frank Espada, was born in the mountain town of Utuado, Puerto Rico in 1930 and died in Pacifica, California in 2014. When Hurricane Maria struck, I suddenly saw his hometown of Utuado everywhere. I saw it in the newspapers. I saw it in videos online. Everywhere I went, I saw Utuado. And according to some, Utuado had become the epicenter of the hurricane. And I began talking to my father. Now, it's not unusual to talk to the dead, especially if you have to be in possession of their corporeal remains. And I am. I have his ashes in a box on my bookshelf. So I began to talk to the box. And that was the genesis of the poem that I'm about to read, which indeed is the last poem in the book Floaters, the one you mentioned, which is a finalist for the National Book Award tomorrow. So here's the poem now, and I should only add here that we were talking about the response of the Flamboyant Arts Fund to Hurricane Maria. Keep in mind that Hurricane Maria and the aftermath killed 4,000 people. And so that's the context for what Flamboyant is doing there and for the following poem. Letter to My Father, October 2017. You once said, my reward for this life would be 1,000 pounds of dirt shoveled in my face. You were wrong. You are 7 pounds of ashes in a box, a Puerto Rican flag wrapped around you, next to a red brick from the house in Utuado where you were born, all cramped together on my bookshelf. You taught me there is no God, no life after this life, so I know you're not watching me type this letter over my shoulder. When I was a boy, you were God. I watched from the 7th floor of the projects as you walked down into the street to stop a public execution. A big man caught a small man stealing his car, and everyone in Brooklyn heard the car alarm wail of the condemned. He's killing me. At a word from you, the executioner's hand slipped from the hair of the thief. The kid was high, as though you said when you came back to us. When I was a boy and you were God, we flew to Puerto Rico. You said, my grandfather was the mayor of Utuado. His name was Buenaventura. That means good fortune. I believed in your grandfather's name. I heard the tree frogs chanting to each other all night. I saw a banana leaf and elephant palm sprouting from the mountain's belly. I gnawed the mango's pit, and the sweet yellow hair stuck between my teeth. I said to you, You came from another planet. How did you do it? You said, every morning, just before I woke up, I saw the mountains. Every morning, I see the mountains. And Utuado, 3 sisters, all in their 70s, all bedridden, all Pentecostales who only left the house for church, lay sleeping on mattresses spread across the floor when the hurricane gutted the mountain the way a butcher slices open a dangled pig, and a rolling wall of mud buried them, leaving the 4th sister to stagger into the street, screaming like an unheeded prophet about the end of the world. Utuado, a man who cultivated a garden of aguacate and carambola, feeding the avocado and star fruit to his nieces from New York, so the trees in his garden beheaded all at once like the soldiers of a beaten army, and so hanged himself. Utuado, a welder and a handyman, rigged a pulley with a shopping cart to ferry rice and beans across the river where the bridge collapsed, witnessed the cart swaying above so many hands that raised a sign that told the helicopters, Campamento Los Olvidados, Camp of the Forgotten. Los Olvidados wait 7 hours in line for a government meal of Skittles and Vienna sausage, or a tarp to cover the bones of a house with no roof as the fungus grows on their skin from sleeping on mattresses drenched with the spit of the hurricane. They drink the brown water, waiting for microscopic monsters in their bellies to visit plagues upon them. A nurse says, these people are going to have an epidemic. These people are going to die. The president flips rolls of paper towels to a crowd at a church in Guaynabo, Zeus lobbing thunderbolts on the locked ward of his delusions. Down the block, cousin Ricardo, Bernice's boy, says that somebody stole his can of diesel. I heard somebody ask you once if Puerto Rico needed to be free, and you said, 3 pulgadas de sangre en la calle. 3 inches of blood in the street. Now, 3 inches of mud flow through the streets of Utuado, and troops patrol the town, as if guarding the vein of copper in the ground, as if a shovel digging graves in the backyard might strike the ore below, as if La Brigada, swinging machetes to clear the road, might remember the last uprising. I know you are not God. I have the proof. 7 pounds of ashes in a box on my bookshelf. Gods do not die, and yet I want you to be God again. Stride from the crowd to seize the president's arm before another roll of paper towels sails away. Thunder Spanish obscenities in his face. Banish him to a roofless rainstorm in Utuado so he unravels one soaked sheet after another till there is nothing left but his cardboard heart. I promised myself I would stop talking to you, white box of gray grit. You were deaf even before you died. Hear my promise now. I will take you to the mountains where houses lost like ships at sea rise blue and yellow from the mud. I will open my hands. I will scatter your ashes. En Utuado.
Martin Espada, reading from his book Floaters, a finalist for the National Book Award, which will be announced tomorrow. Among the first recipients of the inaugural Lettres Boricuas Prize for the Mellon Foundation and the Flamboyant Foundation, and now You Know Why, one of our great poets. We'll be right back.
This is Bill Newman, WHMP. This is Bill Newman, WHMP.
And we are back at Northampton Poetry Radio. My name is Rich Michelson on the Bill Newman Show. We miss you, Bill. and he will be back, I think, tomorrow or the next day. My guest is Martina Espada, whose book, Floaters, everybody should make sure you have a copy, is a finalist for the National Book Award. The winners will be announced tomorrow, but as we say, 5 finalists, it's already a win. And we scooped the world this morning. You were the first people to know about the inaugural Letras Boricuas Fellowship given to Martina Espada from the Mellon Foundation and the Flamboyant Arts Foundation. Elizabeth Alexander, another great poet who is the president of the Mellon Foundation, wrote a congratulatory letter. And I know it's a mixed bag here, Martine. You and I have spoken about this. Awards and poetry. In one sense, they bring more attention to the book. On another sense, as we say, poetry is not a horse race. Are you looking forward for tomorrow being over, regardless?
Yes. Absolutely. I think I'll be relieved. And of course, the irony of the timing of this award coming in and being announced the day before is not to be understated. Let's put it that way. One of the gratifying things about the Letras Boricuas Fellowship is it brings together writers from the island and writers from the diaspora, those of us in the United States. It brings together writers working in Spanish and writers working in English. And that was not always a given. A generation ago, that would have been a very difficult thing to do. Keeping in mind, again, that if we see the island as a colony, one of the basic principles of a colonizer is divide and rule. And so we were people divided by language. We were divided in other ways as well. And it is extraordinarily encouraging to me that this fellowship brings us all together under the same umbrella. And recognizes not only the need, but the accomplishment. I once, this, Rich, I once got an award, it was the Shelley Award from the Poetry Society of America. And they called me up to tell me that I got this award, and I said, well, why did I get this award? And the answer came back, well, we give this award on the basis of genius and need. And I said, "Oh, well, what's the breakdown? Is it 10% genius, 90% need? I suspect it was. So this is different. This is different, and I feel about this the way I felt when last month I read the very same poem you heard in Holyoke at an event commemorating the 4th anniversary of the hurricane. And it was a small event. It was outdoors. It was downtown. One of the speakers was Carmen Yulín Cruz, the former mayor of San Juan, who bravely stood up to President Trump at that time and demanded help and told the world what we now know, that people were dying. And so it was a great honor to speak on the same platform with her and to read that poem and to return to the community that had been not only directly impacted by the hurricane, but that had turned around and mobilized to help. And there were many bridges built at that time between the diaspora community sending help and the island community that needed it. And so this is all part of the same picture. And finally, I want to say the most obvious connection of all is the connection between me and my father.
Yeah.
You know,
And for those who don't know, let me just say briefly that your father, Frank Espada, one of the great photographers of our time, he chronicled the Puerto Rican diaspora in this country, and we'll put in a little plug. If you don't know his work, you can look at our Michelson Gallery's website and look under Frank Espada, and you will see some of his works. I was honored to get to know your father before his death just shortly, and in fact, he gifted me a photograph that he had taken of my own dad's hardware store, when he was doing the East New York, where Martine and I both grew up, neighborhood. So your father, what a gift this is, whether he's here or wherever. It's a gift. It's an honor to him. Martine, you done good.
Well, I would like to think he'd say that.
Yeah. Well,
we still want the approval of our fathers, even if they're long gone.
Yeah.
Usually, anyway, not always.
That's what we work towards.
But if ever I received an award or a fellowship that where I could say this one's for you, speaking to my father, this one would be it.
My guest, Martine Espada. You're listening to Northampton Poetry Radio, the Bill Newman Show. We miss you, Bill. Martine, good luck. National Book Award, the Letters Boricuas Fellowship. Everybody, read this book.
This is Bill Newman, WHMP.